My narcissist mother hired actors to make me think I was crazy. I'm staring at a receipt for $2,400 made out to Premier Casting Solutions when my entire world collapses. The date is March 15, 2024, exactly 3 weeks after I had that breakthrough session with Dr. Amanda Reeves, the therapist who convinced me I was having dissociative episodes. The memo line reads, patient interaction, extended role, bonus for tears. Bonus for tears. My hands are shaking as I rifle through the manila folder I found wedged behind my mother's filing cabinet. More receipts spill out like evidence of a crime scene. $800 to Jake Morrison, romantic interest consultation. $1,200 to Mrs. Chen, concerned neighbor performance, multiple visits. $3,600 to Dr. Amanda Reeves, licensed actor, psychology background preferred. Every single person who made me question my sanity over the past 2 years has been on my mother's payroll. I sink into Margaret's pristine white leather chair. I can't even think of her as mom right now, and try to process what I'm seeing. There's a contract here, printed on official letterhead from something called Immersive Reality Consulting. The client name at the top makes my stomach lurch, Margaret Chin Williams. The target, Sarah Elizabeth Williams. Me. I'm the target. The contract is dated January 2023, right around the time I started noticing people acting off. It outlines a comprehensive behavioral modification program designed to encourage dependency and compliance in the subject through systematic reality distortion. The payment schedule shows a total investment of $47,000 over 18 months. $47,000 to make me think I was losing my mind. I flip to the next page and find a detailed psychological profile of me, complete with my vulnerabilities, triggers, and optimal manipulation vectors. It reads like a military strategy document. Under key objectives, someone has highlighted, subject must be deemed mentally incompetent by December 2024 to facilitate financial guardianship transfer. December 2024. That's 8 months from now. The inheritance. Jesus Christ, it's about Grandma Rose's inheritance. When Rose died last year, she left me $2.3 million in a trust that becomes fully accessible when I turn 30, in exactly 18 months. But there's a clause I'd almost forgotten about. If I'm declared mentally unfit, control transfers to my next of kin. Margaret. My phone buzzes with a text from Dr. Reeves. Hi Sarah. Just checking in after yesterday's session. Remember, those feelings of paranoia we discussed are completely normal. See you Thursday at 3 p.m. I want to vomit. I want to scream. I want to call her right now and tell her I know she's a fraud, that I found the receipts, that her little performance is over. But then I notice something else in the folder. A business card paperclipped to a handwritten note in my mother's precise script. Backup plan if Sarah becomes suspicious. Implement Phase 2 isolation protocol. The business card belongs to Willowbrook Residential Treatment Facility. The note underneath is a pre-filled involuntary commitment form with my name already typed in the patient field. She's planning to have me institutionalized. I hear the garage door opening downstairs. Margaret's home from her book club, or whatever elaborate lie she told to cover her tracks today. I quickly photograph every document with my phone, slide the folder back into its hiding spot, and creep toward the hallway. Sarah, honey? Are you home? Her voice drifts up the stairs, sweet as poisoned honey. Coming, Mom. I call back, my voice surprisingly steady. But I'm not her daughter anymore. I'm her victim who just found the smoking gun. And now it's time to turn the tables. I make it downstairs just as Margaret is setting her purse on the marble kitchen counter. She looks exactly like she always does, perfectly styled silver bob, cream cashmere sweater, that practiced smile that I now realize has been a costume this entire time. How was your day, sweetheart? She moves toward me with arms outstretched for a hug, and I have to fight every instinct screaming at me to recoil. Fine, I manage, letting her embrace me while my skin crawls. Just studying for my thesis defense. Oh, about that. She pulls back, and there's something different in her eyes. Sharper. I've been thinking maybe you should postpone it. You've seemed so scattered lately. So stressed. The thesis defense. I'm supposed to present my research on psychological manipulation in corporate environments next month. The irony would be hilarious if it wasn't so sick. I feel fine, Mom. Really. I keep my voice light, but I'm studying her face now, looking for tells I missed before. Well, Dr. Reeves mentioned you've been having some concerning episodes. She thinks. Wait. I interrupt, my heart hammering. You talked to Dr. Reeves? When? Margaret's smile flickers for just a microsecond. She called me yesterday, honey. She's worried about you. We both are. That's impossible. Yesterday was Tuesday. I saw Dr. Reeves on Monday, and patient confidentiality laws would prevent her from contacting family without my written consent I never gave. But of course, those laws don't apply when your therapist is actually an actress following a script. What exactly did she say? I ask. Just that you've been having some paranoid thoughts. Believing people are watching you, that conversations you remember never actually happened. Margaret reaches out to touch my forehead. You look pale. Are you sleeping? Every word out of her mouth is a lie wrapped in fake concern, and I want to scream. Instead, I nod. I'm just tired. Why don't you go rest? I'll make dinner. She's already turning toward the refrigerator, dismissing me. Oh, and Sarah? I made you an appointment with Dr. Patterson for tomorrow. My blood turns to ice. Who's Dr. Patterson? A psychiatrist. Dr. Reeves recommended him. She thinks you might benefit from medication to help with the anxiety. I know that name. Dr. Gerald Patterson was on one of the business cards in Margaret's folder, right next to Willowbrook Treatment Facility. This is Phase 2. The isolation protocol. I don't need a psychiatrist, Mom. Her back is still to me, but I see her shoulders tense. It's not really a choice, sweetheart. Dr. Reeves is concerned enough that she thinks intervention might be necessary if you don't cooperate. Intervention. The involuntary commitment papers I saw upstairs suddenly make perfect sense. I see. I keep my voice steady even though I feel like I'm drowning. What time is the appointment? 10 a.m. I'll drive you. She turns back to me, and her smile is all teeth now. We just want what's best for you, Sarah. You know that, right? I nod and head upstairs, my mind racing. I have less than 18 hours before she tries to have me committed. 18 hours to figure out how to prove that the woman who raised me has been systematically destroying my sanity for money. In my room, I pull out my laptop and start researching immersive reality consulting. What I find makes my hands shake all over again. They specialize in extended reality manipulation for legal and corporate applications. Their client testimonials are terrifying: parents who wanted to break up their children's relationships, executives who needed to discredit whistleblowers, families fighting over inheritances. Families fighting over inheritances. I scroll through their service packages, and there it is: incompetency development, $45,000 to $60,000 depending on timeline and complexity. My phone buzzes. A text from Jake Morrison, the guy who broke my heart 3 months ago after a whirlwind 2-month relationship. Hey beautiful. Been thinking about you. Coffee tomorrow? Even my heartbreak was purchased and paid for. But now I know the truth. And tomorrow, before that appointment with Dr. Patterson, I'm going to start fighting back. I spend the night planning my counterattack instead of sleeping. By 5 a.m., I have a strategy that would make Margaret proud if it weren't designed to destroy her. First, I need insurance. I upload every photo of the documents to a secure cloud drive, then email copies to myself from 3 different accounts. If Margaret tries to have me committed, this evidence needs to survive. Second, I need allies. Real ones this time. At 7 a.m., I call my cousin David in Portland. We haven't talked in months, but he's a lawyer, and more importantly, he's never liked Margaret. Sarah? It's barely dawn here. Is everything? David, I need help. Margaret is trying to steal Grandma Rose's inheritance by having me declared mentally incompetent. I skip the pleasantries. She hired actors to gaslight me for 2 years. I have proof. Silence. Then, what kind of proof? I walk him through everything: the receipts, the contracts, the fake therapist. His sharp intake of breath when I mention the involuntary commitment papers tells me he believes me. Jesus, Sarah. That's criminal fraud. Potentially criminal conspiracy. Can you get to my office in Portland? She's taking me to see a psychiatrist at 10. I think it's part of the setup. Don't go. Pack a bag right now and drive here. I'll file for an emergency restraining order. But I'm already shaking my head even though he can't see me. If I run, she wins. Everyone will think I had a breakdown. I need to document her in the act. Sarah, that's incredibly dangerous. If she's willing to. I'm recording the appointment, I interrupt. Oregon is a one-party consent state. Whatever this Dr. Patterson says, I'll have it on record. David reluctantly agrees to be on standby, and I hang up to execute phase 2 of my plan. I find Immersive Reality Consulting's competitor online, a company called Authentic Experiences LLC. Their website is disturbingly professional, advertising reality restructuring services and narrative management solutions. I dial their number. Authentic Experiences, this is Miranda speaking. Hi, I need to hire some actors for a family situation. It's urgent. Of course. What kind of scenario are we looking at? My hands are steady now. I need to expose someone who's been using your competitor's services. I want to turn their own tactics against them. Miranda's voice brightens with interest. Competitive counteroperation. We love those. When do you need this implemented? Today. This afternoon. I check my account balance. The trust gives me a monthly allowance of $3,000. Money isn't an issue. Excellent. Let me transfer you to our rapid deployment team. By 8:30, I have 3 actors on retainer and a plan that would make Margaret's manipulation look amateur. The irony isn't lost on me. I'm becoming exactly like her to beat her. At 9:15, Margaret knocks on my door. Ready to go, sweetheart? I slip my phone into my jacket pocket, recording app already running. Ready. The drive to Dr. Patterson's office is 20 minutes of Margaret practicing her concerned mother routine. She mentions my episodes 4 times, my paranoid thoughts twice, and how worried she's been at least 6 times. I just want my daughter back, she says as we pull into the medical building parking lot. I want to tell her that her daughter died the moment I found those receipts. What's sitting next to her now is something harder. Something she created but can't control. I know, Mom. I want that too. Dr. Patterson's office is exactly what I expected: sterile, professional, designed to make you feel small. But when he walks into the waiting room to greet us, something's wrong. He looks nervous. His handshake is too firm, his smile too practiced. And when Margaret introduces herself, he says, "Mrs. Williams, so good to finally meet you in person." Finally meet in person. They've been talking. Planning. This appointment isn't an evaluation, it's a performance, and I'm the only one who doesn't know my lines. But that's about to change. Dr. Patterson's office is a stage set, and I can see all the props now that I know what I'm looking for. The diplomas on the wall are positioned too perfectly, the family photos look like stock images, and there's a faint outline on his desk where a nameplate was recently moved. "So Sarah," he says, settling into his chair with theatrical concern, "your mother and Dr. Reeves have shared some troubling observations about your recent behavior." I let him talk while I study his performance. He's good, better than the others. His delivery is smooth, professional, but there's a tell: he keeps glancing at a notepad on his desk. Not casual reference glances. Script glances. I understand you've been experiencing paranoid episodes? Believing that people in your life aren't who they claim to be? The irony is so thick I almost laugh. Sometimes I feel like everyone around me is acting, I say carefully. Margaret leans forward in her chair beside me. She's been saying things like that for months. Yesterday she accused me of talking to Dr. Reeves behind her back. But you did talk to Dr. Reeves, I say, turning to look at her. You told me she called you. No, honey. Margaret's voice is gentle, patient. I said she mentioned her concerns during our family session last week. Remember? You were there. I never had a family session with Dr. Reeves. But according to my phone's recording, Margaret just created a false memory and presented it as fact in front of a witness. Classic gaslighting technique, and now I have it documented. I don't remember that session, I admit. Dr. Patterson makes a note. Memory gaps can be concerning, Sarah. Combined with the paranoid ideation, we might be looking at early-stage psychosis. What would treatment look like? I ask. Initially, medication to stabilize your mood. Possibly a short-term inpatient stay for observation, just to establish a baseline. There it is. Willowbrook Treatment Facility, here we come. How short-term? 30 days minimum. Possibly longer depending on your response to treatment. 30 days. More than enough time for Margaret to establish guardianship proceedings while I'm locked away, discredited, and medicated into compliance. I'd like a second opinion, I say. Margaret's hand lands on my shoulder. Sweetheart, we've already gotten multiple opinions. Dr. Reeves, Dr. Patterson, even Mrs. Chen has noticed concerning changes in your behavior. Mrs. Chen. The neighbor who was paid $1,200 to express fake concern about me. What kind of changes? I ask Dr. Patterson. He consults his script, notepad. Talking to yourself, staying awake at odd hours, paranoid surveillance of neighbors. Mrs. Chen mentioned you've been watching her house and taking notes. I have been watching Mrs. Chen's house, but only because I couldn't figure out why she suddenly cared so much about my well-being after ignoring me for 3 years. Now I know she was being paid to establish a pattern of concerning behavior. Dr. Patterson, I say, how long have you been practicing psychiatry? 15 years, he answers without hesitation. Where did you complete your residency? A micropause. Johns Hopkins. What year? Another pause, slightly longer. 2008 to 2012. I nod thoughtfully. That's interesting, because I looked up Johns Hopkins psychiatric residency programs last night. They're only 3 years long, not 4. The room goes very quiet. Margaret's hand tightens on my shoulder. I misspoke, Dr. Patterson says smoothly. 2009 to 2012. It's been a long week. Of course. I smile. Could you write me a prescription for something mild? Just to help with anxiety while I consider the inpatient option? Certainly. He reaches for his prescription pad, and I watch carefully as he writes. His medical license number is too short. Real DEA numbers for prescribing physicians follow a specific format, 2 letters, 7 digits, then 1 check digit. His has only 6 digits after the letters. Thank you. I fold the fake prescription and put it in my pocket next to my still recording phone. I'd like to discuss this with my family before making any decisions about hospitalization. Margaret's grip on my shoulder becomes painful. Sarah, we are your family. And we think. I mean my cousin David. He's a lawyer in Portland, and I value his opinion. The temperature in the room drops 10 degrees. Dr. Patterson and Margaret exchange a look that lasts a fraction too long. Of course, Margaret says finally. Family input is important. But Sarah, we can't wait forever. Your condition seems to be deteriorating rapidly. How rapidly? Dr. Patterson thinks we should move forward with treatment by tomorrow. Tomorrow. They're accelerating the timeline. I understand. Can I have until this evening to decide? Absolutely, Dr. Patterson says, but his smile doesn't reach his eyes. However, if you experience any acute episodes before then, please don't hesitate to call. I'm on call 24/7 for situations like this. Situations like this. Not patients like this. Situations. We shake hands, and I follow Margaret to the car, my mind racing. They know I'm suspicious, and they're moving to phase 3 ahead of schedule. I probably have hours, not days, before they try to have me committed. But I have something they don't know about. My own actors are already in position. As Margaret drives us home, my phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number, package delivered. Standing by for your signal. Game on, Margaret. The first phase of my counterattack launches at 2:47 p.m., exactly 3 hours after we return from Dr. Patterson's office. I'm in my room, supposedly resting like Margaret suggested, when I hear the doorbell ring. Through my window, I watch a woman in an expensive navy suit approach our front door, briefcase in hand. Mrs. Williams? I hear her voice carry up the stairs. I'm Detective Lisa Morrison with the Oregon State Financial Crimes Unit. I need to speak with you about some irregular financial transactions we've flagged in your accounts. My heart pounds as I listen to Margaret's response. I'm sorry, there must be some mistake. I haven't. Ma'am, we have records showing payments totaling over $40,000 to various entertainment and casting companies over the past 18 months. The pattern is consistent with financial fraud schemes we've been tracking. Perfect. Miranda from Authentic Experiences found me an actress who actually used to work in law enforcement. Her performance is flawless, authoritative but not aggressive, professional but concerned. I think you should call my lawyer, Margaret says, but I can hear the uncertainty in her voice. That's absolutely your right, Mrs. Williams. However, I should mention that we've also received a complaint from your daughter regarding potential elder abuse of a trust fund. If you'd prefer to clear this up informally before we involve additional agencies. There's a long pause. Then, please, come in. I creep to the top of the stairs, staying just out of sight. The fake detective is good. She's got Margaret sitting at the kitchen table, pulling out official-looking documents that are actually just printed forms I found online. These payments to Premier Casting Solutions and Immersive Reality Consulting, Detective Morrison continues. Can you explain what services you received from these companies? Those were for a surprise party. For Sarah's birthday. A surprise party that lasted 18 months and cost $47,000? Margaret's voice gets smaller. It was a very elaborate party. I almost feel sorry for her. Almost. My phone buzzes with a text from my second actor, in position outside Target's office. Waiting for green light. I text back, execute now. While Margaret deals with her fake financial crimes investigation downstairs, my second hired actor, a middle-aged man in a cheap suit carrying a clipboard, is walking into the offices of Whitman and Associates, where Margaret works as a senior real estate consultant. His script is simple. He's from the Oregon Real Estate Commission, investigating complaints about unethical practices. He'll spend 20 minutes asking Margaret's colleagues very loud, very public questions about her recent behavior, her client relationships, and whether they've noticed any signs of mental instability. By tomorrow, everyone in Margaret's professional circle will be whispering about whether she's having a breakdown. Downstairs, I hear Detective Morrison wrapping up. Mrs. Williams, I'm going to need you to come to the station tomorrow morning to make a formal statement. And I'd strongly advise against making any large financial transactions until we clear this up. Am I under arrest? Not at this time. But Mrs. Williams? If we find evidence that you've been using these funds to manipulate or harm your daughter, this becomes a very different kind of investigation. The front door closes. I count to 30, then come downstairs to find Margaret sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the fake business card Detective Morrison left behind. Mom? What was that about? She looks up at me, and for the first time in 2 years, I see genuine fear in her eyes. Nothing, sweetheart. Just some confusion about my business expenses. Are you in trouble? No. It's just a misunderstanding. But her hands are shaking as she slides the business card into her purse. Sarah, about Dr. Patterson's recommendation. Maybe we should wait a few days before. My phone rings, interrupting her. The caller ID shows Whitman and Associates. Sarah? This is Janet from your mother's office. Is Margaret available? We've had some investigators here asking questions, and Mr. Whitman needs to speak with her immediately. I hand the phone to Margaret, watching her face go pale as she listens to whatever Janet is telling her. I'll be right there, Margaret says finally, hanging up. She grabs her keys and purse, then pauses at the door. Sarah, honey? Maybe you should stay here tonight. Order some dinner, watch a movie. I might be very late. Of course, Mom. Handle whatever you need to handle. The garage door closes behind her, and I'm alone in the house for the first time since I discovered the truth about my life. I text my third actor, Target has left the building. Phase 3 is go. Within an hour, Margaret's book club friends, tennis partners, and church committee members will all receive concerned phone calls from Sarah's therapist explaining that Margaret has been showing signs of severe psychological distress and might be dangerous. The same web of fake concern she built around me is now tightening around her. But as I sit in our empty kitchen, I realize something that makes my stomach clench. I'm enjoying this too much. I'm standing in Margaret's home office at 11:43 p.m., going through her files one more time, when I find something that makes my blood turn to ice. It's a medical report dated 6 months ago, hidden in a folder marked insurance documents. The letterhead reads Pacific Northwest Psychiatric Associates, and it's signed by a real doctor, Dr. Elizabeth Hartman. The report is about me. According to this document, I was evaluated by Dr. Hartman on September 15, 2023, after being brought in by my concerned mother following what Margaret described as a severe psychotic episode involving threats of violence and complete detachment from reality. I was never evaluated by Dr. Hartman. I've never even heard of her. But the report is thorough, clinical, and utterly damning. It describes me as severely delusional, potentially dangerous to self and others, and recommends immediate psychiatric intervention, possibly including involuntary commitment if the patient refuses treatment. The worst part? Dr. Hartman's signature looks real. Her license number checks out when I search it online. This isn't another fake actor. This is a legitimate psychiatrist who wrote a completely fabricated report about a patient she's never met. My hands shake as I photograph every page. Margaret didn't just hire actors to gaslight me. She corrupted actual medical professionals. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. This is Dr. Patterson. Your mother is very concerned about you. She says you barricaded yourself in her office and you're destroying property. I think we need to implement emergency protocols. Emergency protocols. The involuntary commitment. I check the time, 11:51 p.m. My actors finished their performances hours ago, and Margaret should be dealing with the fallout of her crumbling professional reputation. She shouldn't even know I'm in her office unless she's been watching me. I scan the room and spotted immediately a tiny camera mounted in the corner where the wall meets the ceiling, positioned to capture anyone sitting at her desk. The red recording light is barely visible, but it's there. She's been recording me going through her files. Another text from Dr. Patterson. Sarah, I'm en route with emergency services. Please don't do anything to hurt yourself or others. Help is coming. Emergency services. They're going to force me into Willowbrook tonight. I grab the most damaging documents, the contracts with Immersive Reality Consulting, the fake Dr. Hartman report, the business cards for Willowbrook, and stuff them into my jacket. But as I head for the door, I hear car engines in the driveway. Through the window, I see an ambulance and 2 police cars pulling up to our house. Margaret gets out of the lead car, followed by a man I don't recognize in a white coat. They're not here to arrest Margaret for fraud. They're here to take me away. I text David frantically, emergency. They're trying to commit me right now. Margaret has fake medical reports. Police are here. His response comes immediately, do not let them take you without seeing a warrant. Record everything. I'm driving down now. The doorbell rings, followed by heavy knocking. Sarah Williams? This is Officer Martinez with Portland PD. We need you to come to the door, please. I start recording on my phone and walk slowly downstairs, my heart hammering. Through the peephole, I can see Margaret standing behind 2 uniformed officers and the man in the white coat. What's this about? I call through the door. We have a mental health evaluation order, Miss Williams. We need you to come with us for your own safety. I'd like to see the order, please. There's a brief conversation I can't make out, then Officer Martinez slides a document under the door. I pick it up, still recording, and read it carefully. It's signed by Judge Patricia Henley and dated today. The justification cites credible reports from licensed medical professionals indicating subject poses an imminent danger to herself and potentially others due to severe psychiatric disturbance. The medical professional referenced is Dr. Elizabeth Hartman, the doctor who wrote a report about me without ever meeting me. Officer Martinez, I call out, I'd like to speak with my attorney before complying with this order. Ma'am, this is an emergency mental health hold. You don't have the right to delay it for legal consultation. That's not true, but I suspect arguing constitutional law with cops at midnight while my mother watches isn't going to end well for me. My phone buzzes with a text from David, stall them. I found something about Dr. Hartman you need to know. I take a deep breath and open the door. Before we go anywhere, I say, holding up my phone with the recording app visible, I want to make sure I understand the situation correctly. You're here based on a report from Dr. Elizabeth Hartman, is that correct? Officer Martinez glances at his paperwork. That's correct, miss. And when exactly did Dr. Hartman examine me to make this determination? Margaret steps forward, her concerned mother mask perfectly in place. Sweetheart, you've been so confused lately. Dr. Hartman evaluated you last September when you had that episode at the grocery store, remember? The grocery store. I rack my brain, trying to remember any incident from September that could justify this lie. Then it hits me, I did have an anxiety attack at Fred Meyer after running into my ex-boyfriend Marcus, who I now know was another paid actor. I hyperventilated in the cereal aisle and Margaret drove me home. I was never taken to see any doctor after that incident, I say clearly, making sure my phone captures every word. Sarah, you're having another episode right now, the man in the white coat says, stepping forward. I'm Dr. Patterson. We spoke this morning, remember? You agreed to consider treatment. And I said I wanted time to think about it. That's not the same as consenting to emergency commitment. My phone buzzes with another text from David. Dr. Hartman lost her license 3 months ago for falsifying patient records. Whatever report they have is fraudulent. My blood turns to fire. Officer Martinez, I have reason to believe the medical report you're relying on is fraudulent. Dr. Elizabeth Hartman's medical license was revoked 3 months ago. The officer frowns and looks at Margaret, who immediately jumps in. Sarah's been obsessing over conspiracy theories for weeks. She spends hours online researching people who don't exist, making up elaborate stories about actors and fake doctors. This is exactly the kind of paranoid behavior Dr. Hartman documented. It's brilliant, actually. Margaret has positioned every true thing I might say as evidence of my insanity. The more accurate my accusations, the crazier I sound. Ma'am, we need you to come with us, Officer Martinez says, his patience wearing thin. You can sort out the medical details at the facility. I'm not resisting, I say carefully. But I'm requesting that someone verify Dr. Hartman's current license status before you transport me based on potentially fraudulent documentation. Sarah, please, Margaret says, and I swear I can see tears forming in her eyes. You're scaring me. This is exactly what Dr. Patterson warned us might happen, complete disconnection from reality, paranoid accusations about medical professionals. The second officer, a younger woman whose badge reads Chin, speaks up for the first time. Ma'am, I can run a quick license verification from my patrol car if that would help resolve this. Margaret's face flickers with something, panic, before the concerned expression slides back into place. Of course, whatever helps Sarah feel more comfortable. Officer Chin walks back to her car and I watch her through the windshield, typing on her computer terminal. The conversation between Martinez, Margaret, and fake Dr. Patterson becomes a low murmur I can't make out, but I catch fragments. Dangerous delay. Documented pattern of paranoia. Risk to public safety. My phone buzzes. Found the judge who signed your order. Patricia Henley retired 8 months ago. Someone forged her signature. Screenshot everything now. I quickly photograph the commitment order, focusing on Judge Henley's signature. If David is right, this entire thing is illegal. Officer Chen returns from her car, and her expression has changed completely. Martinez, we have a problem. Officer Martinez steps away from our group, and Chen speaks to him in urgent whispers. I catch the words invalid license and need to verify. Margaret must hear it too because she suddenly sways and grabs fake Dr. Patterson's arm. I think I'm going to be sick. This is all so stressful. Maybe we should just take Sarah to the hospital to be safe, sort out the paperwork later? But Officer Martinez is already shaking his head and walking back toward us with a very different energy than before. Mrs. Williams, he says to Margaret, we're going to need to see some additional documentation before we proceed. Margaret's face goes completely white. What kind of additional documentation? Well, for starters, we need to verify that Dr. Patterson here is actually licensed to make emergency psychiatric evaluations. Officer Martinez turns to the man in the white coat. Can I see your credentials, doctor? The fake Dr. Patterson reaches into his jacket, and I watch his hands shake slightly as he pulls out a wallet. Of course, officer. Though I should mention, every minute we delay puts Sarah at greater risk. He hands over what looks like a medical license, but Officer Chin takes one look at it and shakes her head. Sir, this is a California license, and it expired in 2019. You can't authorize emergency holds in Oregon with invalid credentials. That's impossible, Margaret stammers. Dr. Patterson came highly recommended from Dr. Reeves. Mom, I say loudly enough for my phone to capture every word, Dr. Reeves is also an actress. I found the receipts in your office. You paid Premier Casting Solutions $2,400 for her services. Officer Martinez's hand moves to his radio. Dispatch, I need a supervisor at 1247 Maple Street. We've got a possible fraud situation involving forged medical documents. Margaret grabs my arm, her fingernails digging into my skin. Sarah, stop this. You're having a breakdown. You're not thinking clearly. Officer Martinez, I say, pulling away from her grip, my cousin David Chen is an attorney in Portland. He's driving down here right now because he found evidence that Judge Patricia Henley, whose signature is on this commitment order, retired 8 months ago. The silence that follows is deafening. Margaret and fake Dr. Patterson exchange a look that lasts too long, and I can practically see them calculating their options. Mrs. Williams, Officer Chen says carefully, I think we need to have a longer conversation about what's really going on here. That's when Margaret makes the mistake that destroys everything. This is exactly what they do at Willowbrook, she says, her voice rising with desperation. They warned me that Sarah would try to manipulate law enforcement, that she'd have elaborate stories ready. Dr. Hartman said patients with her condition can be incredibly convincing when they want to avoid treatment. Officer Martinez stops walking toward his radio and turns back to stare at her. Ma'am, how do you know about Willowbrook? We haven't mentioned any specific facility. Margaret's mouth opens and closes like a fish. Dr. Patterson mentioned it earlier. No, ma'am, he didn't. I've been here the entire time. Officer Martinez looks at his notes. And according to my partner's license verification, there is no current Dr. Patterson authorized to practice psychiatry in Oregon. The man in the white coat takes a step backward toward the ambulance. Officers, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Perhaps I should call my supervising physician to clarify. Sir, please remain where you are. Officer Chen's voice has gone from helpful to authoritative. We're going to need to verify everyone's identity before anyone leaves the scene. My phone rings, and David's name appears on the screen. Can I answer this? I ask Officer Martinez. It's my attorney. He nods, and I put the call on speaker. David? Sarah, don't let them take you anywhere. I'm 15 minutes out, and I've got a federal fraud investigator with me. The commitment order is forged, Dr. Hartman's license was revoked for falsifying records, and Judge Henley is in assisted living with dementia. Margaret makes a sound like a wounded animal. Who is this? Officer Martinez asks. David Chen, Oregon State Bar number 47291. I represent Sarah Williams, and I have evidence that she's the victim of an elaborate fraud scheme orchestrated by her mother to gain control of her inheritance. Margaret suddenly turns and runs toward her car, but Officer Chen is faster. Ma'am, please stop. We need to sort this out. The fake Dr. Patterson isn't as quick to react. He's still standing there in his white coat when Officer Martinez asks him, what's your real name, sir? My name is Dr. Gerald Patterson, and I demand to speak to my attorney. Your real name, Officer Martinez repeats. Because according to our database, the real Dr. Gerald Patterson died in 2018. The man in the white coat, whoever he really is, goes completely silent when Officer Martinez mentions the real Dr. Patterson's death. His face drains of color, and I watch him glance toward the ambulance like he's calculating whether he can make a run for it. My name is Thomas Garrett, he finally admits, his authoritative doctor voice cracking. I'm an actor. But I was just doing a job, I swear. I didn't know anything about forged documents or judges. Margaret lets out a strangled sob from where Officer Chen is holding her by the patrol car. Thomas, shut up. Don't say another word. You know each other outside of tonight? Officer Martinez asks, his pen poised over his notepad. Thomas Garrett nods miserably. She hired me 6 months ago through immersive reality consulting. I've been playing Dr. Patterson for multiple performances. The word performances hits me like a physical blow. 6 months. That means Margaret started planning my psychiatric commitment half a year ago, right around the time I started getting serious about my thesis defense and my 30th birthday began approaching. What other performances? I ask, my voice barely steady. Thomas looks at Margaret, then at the police officers, clearly trying to figure out which choice will get him in less trouble. The consultation today was my 3rd time playing Dr. Patterson. The first 2 were video calls where I gave your mother reports about your supposed deteriorating mental state. Video calls with who? Social services. Your cousin David, except it wasn't really your cousin, it was another actor Margaret hired to play a concerned family member requesting welfare checks. My knees nearly give out. Margaret didn't just gaslight me, she created an entire false narrative with multiple government agencies, complete with fake family members expressing concern and fraudulent medical professionals documenting my mental decline. How many people has my mother hired to pretend to be my family? I ask, dreading the answer. Thomas glances at Margaret again, but she's staring at the ground, no longer bothering to maintain her concerned mother act. I don't know everyone, but there was the fake cousin David who called social services, your fake Aunt Linda who supposedly witnessed you having violent episodes, and someone played your grandmother's old neighbor who claimed Rose was worried about your mental health before she died. Each revelation feels like another piece of my reality crumbling. Margaret didn't just steal 2 years of my life, she rewrote my entire family history, complete with dead grandmother's concerns and relatives who don't exist. My phone buzzes with a text from the real David. Sarah, I can see the police cars. Don't sign anything until I get there. The FBI fraud unit wants to interview you tomorrow. FBI. This has escalated beyond local fraud into federal territory. Officers, I say, holding up my phone, my actual cousin David, the real attorney, says the FBI wants to interview me about this case. Officer Martinez raises an eyebrow. The Federal Bureau is involved? Wire fraud across state lines, identity theft, conspiracy to commit financial fraud, I read from David's follow-up text. When you use actors and fake documentation to steal someone's inheritance, it becomes a federal case. Margaret finally speaks up from beside the patrol car, her voice hollow. Sarah, you have to understand. I never meant for it to go this far. It was just supposed to be a few therapy sessions to help you become more manageable. More willing to listen to family guidance about your future. Manageable? The word comes out as a growl. You spent $47,000 over 2 years to convince me I was insane so you could steal my inheritance. You hired fake relatives to report me to social services. You corrupted real doctors to write false psychiatric reports. The inheritance was never supposed to go to you. Margaret's mask finally slips completely, revealing something ugly and desperate underneath. Rose barely knew you. You visited her maybe twice a year, but suddenly you're her favorite grandchild getting millions while I, her own daughter-in-law who took care of her for 15 years, get nothing? There it is. The real motive, finally spoken out loud. So you decided to drive me insane instead of just talking to me about it. I tried talking to you. But you were so stubborn about graduate school, so determined to be independent. You wouldn't listen to reasonable suggestions about managing that money responsibly. Officer Chen looks between us with growing understanding. Mrs. Williams, are you saying you orchestrated this scheme because you disagreed with your daughter's life choices? Margaret doesn't answer, but Thomas Garrett fills the silence. She told us Sarah was mentally unstable and dangerous. She said we were helping prevent her from hurting herself or others with poor financial decisions. And you believe that required fake psychiatric evaluations and forged commitment orders? Officer Martinez asks. I just read the scripts they gave me, Thomas says weakly. I never saw any actual medical files or legal documents. Margaret handled all that. Headlights sweep across our driveway as another car pulls up, David's Honda Civic, followed by a black sedan with government plates. My real cousin jumps out of his car and strides toward us with a woman in a dark suit close behind. Sarah. David calls out. Are you okay? Did they try to take you anywhere? No, the officers figured out the documents were forged before. Mrs. Margaret Williams? The woman in the suit interrupts, flashing a badge. I'm Special Agent Rebecca Torres, FBI Financial Crimes Division. You're under arrest for wire fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and identity theft. As Agent Torres reads Margaret her rights, I watch my mother's face cycle through disbelief, rage, and finally something that might be regret. But I'm not sure if she regrets what she did to me, or just that she got caught. Thomas Garrett is also being handcuffed, though Agent Torres explains he'll likely face lesser charges in exchange for cooperation. The ambulance crew, who apparently had no idea they were responding to a fraudulent call, pack up their equipment and leave with bewildered expressions. It's 1:23 a.m. when the police cars finally pull away with Margaret in the back seat. David, Agent Torres, and I stand in my driveway, Margaret's driveway, under the porch light, and the silence feels surreal after 2 hours of chaos. What happens now? I ask. Agent Torres closes her notebook. Now we build a case. We'll need you to provide all the evidence you've gathered, testimony about the actors you encountered, and documentation of the financial impact. This is going to be a significant federal prosecution. I nod, but part of me feels empty rather than victorious. Margaret is gone, the truth is out, but I'm standing in front of a house that never really felt like home, realizing I don't know who I actually am without her manipulation defining my reality. Sarah, David says quietly, you can stay with me and Jennifer until you figure out your next steps. You don't have to be here alone. I look back at the house where I discovered my mother had hired actors to convince me I was crazy, and realize I never want to see it again. Actually, I tell them both, I think it's time I started over completely. 3 weeks after Margaret's arrest, I'm sitting in my new Portland apartment when Agent Torres calls with news that makes my blood run cold. Sarah, we found something in your mother's financial records that changes everything, she says without preamble. This wasn't just about your inheritance. I set down my coffee mug, my hands already starting to shake. What do you mean? Margaret has been running the same operation on at least 4 other people over the past 5 years. We found contracts with immersive reality consulting dating back to 2019, targeting other inheritance beneficiaries across 3 states. The room starts spinning. Other people? A college student in Seattle whose grandfather left him a tech portfolio worth $8 million. Twin sisters in California who inherited their parents' vineyard. A recent widower in Nevada whose wife left him her family's real estate empire. Agent Torres' voice is grim. Margaret wasn't just stealing from you, Sarah. She's been systematically destroying people's sanity for profit, and she's been doing it for years. I think I'm going to be sick. Were they all successful? The other operations? 2 of them, yes. The college student, Marcus Chen, no relation to your cousin, is currently in a long-term psychiatric facility in Washington. His grandfather's money is being managed by a family friend who happens to be one of Margaret's business associates. The widower in Nevada signed over his power of attorney to a woman claiming to be his late wife's sister. That woman doesn't exist, but the bank accounts she controls are very real. Marcus Chen. I remember that name from Margaret's files. It was written on a business card I found but didn't think was important at the time. Agent Torres, how did you find all this? Thomas Garrett. He's been cooperating fully in exchange for a reduced sentence, and yesterday he gave us a complete list of everyone he's worked with through immersive reality consulting. Margaret's operation is huge, Sarah. She has a network of corrupt medical professionals, retired judges willing to sign false documents for cash, and at least 30 actors on retainer. 30 actors. I think about every interaction I've had over the past 2 years, wondering how many were purchased and paid for. The grocery store clerk who seemed unusually interested in my well-being. The woman at the coffee shop who kept asking personal questions. The maintenance guy in my apartment building who always had concerns about my odd hours. How many people in my life were real? There's something else, Agent Torres continues. We think Margaret might have had help from someone with access to legal databases and medical records. The forged documents were too sophisticated for her to create alone. What kind of help? Someone in law enforcement, or possibly a court clerk with administrative access. We're investigating several possibilities, but Sarah, we think some of the people who were supposed to protect you might have been working with her. My phone slips from my hand and clatters onto the coffee table. The police officers who came to my house that night, Officer Martinez and Officer Chen. They seemed genuinely surprised by the forged documents, but what if that was an act? What if they were expecting to take me to Willowbrook, no questions asked? Agent Torres, the officers who responded to my house, Martinez and Chen, are they part of this? We're looking into everyone who had contact with your case. I can't give you specifics yet, but I need you to be very careful about who you trust. I'm suddenly paranoid about my new apartment, wondering if Margaret somehow knows where I am. Am I safe here? We have surveillance on Margaret, and she's not getting bail given the federal charges and flight risk. But Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. My heart starts racing. What? In the past 3 weeks, since Margaret's arrest, has anyone new entered your life? New neighbors, co-workers, people who've shown unusual interest in your well-being or asked questions about the case? I think back through the past few weeks. There's Mrs. Patterson, the elderly woman next door who brought me cookies and seemed very curious about why I moved to Portland so suddenly. The barista at the coffee shop downstairs who always asks how I'm adjusting and whether I have family support. The guy from the apartment management company who stopped by twice to check on things even though nothing needs checking. Oh God, I whisper. There are at least 3 people who fit that description. Sarah, I need you to pack a bag right now and meet me at the federal building. Don't talk to anyone in your building, don't tell anyone where you're going, and don't trust anyone who approaches you. I'm already moving toward my bedroom, grabbing clothes, and throwing them into a duffel bag. Agent Torres, is Margaret still running this operation from jail? We don't think so, but we're starting to suspect she wasn't the one in charge to begin with. That stops me cold. What do you mean? I mean Margaret might have been middle management, Sarah. And if that's true, then whoever's really running this operation just lost their most valuable asset when we arrested her. So they'll want to clean up loose ends. Exactly. And right now, you're the biggest loose end they have. I'm in the back of Agent Torres' unmarked sedan, watching Portland blur past through tinted windows, when my phone starts buzzing with notifications I never signed up for. The first one makes my blood freeze. Sarah, this is Dr. Amanda Reeves. I'm very concerned about some erratic posts you've been making on social media. Please call me immediately. I haven't posted anything on social media in months. I barely use Facebook anymore. Agent Torres, I say, my voice shaking. I'm getting texts from Dr. Reeves, the fake therapist. She glances at me in the rearview mirror. What's she saying? Before I can answer, my phone buzzes again. This time it's a notification from Facebook. Sarah Williams tagged you in a post. I open the app with trembling fingers and find a post on my own timeline that I never wrote. Can't sleep again. The voices are getting louder. Sometimes I think about ending it all. Mom was right about everything. They're posting as me, I whisper, screenshotting everything frantically. Someone has access to my social media accounts and they're making it look like I'm suicidal. Agent Torres immediately pulls over and grabs her radio. This is Torres. I need cybercrimes to trace social media activity on Sarah Williams' accounts, right now. Someone's impersonating her online. My phone won't stop buzzing. Instagram, Twitter, even my LinkedIn account, posts are appearing everywhere, all written in my voice, all describing mental health crises that aren't happening. The LinkedIn post is particularly devastating. I need to take extended leave from my graduate program. My psychiatric condition has deteriorated significantly since my mother's false arrest. Dr. Reeves was right about everything. They're destroying my reputation in real time, I say, watching years of academic credibility evaporate with each fake post. By tomorrow, everyone will think I've had a complete breakdown. Agent Torres is back on the radio, speaking in urgent tones to someone at the FBI Cybercrime Division. Through the phone speaker, I can hear another notification chime. This time it's an email from the University of Oregon Graduate Office. Ms. Williams, we've received concerning reports about your mental health status from Dr. Amanda Reeves and several family members. Please contact the Dean's office immediately to discuss your continued enrollment in the doctoral program. Family members. I only have one living relative who would contact my university, and David would never do this without telling me. Agent Torres, they're contacting my university with fake family members again. How is this possible when Margaret's in federal custody? She hangs up the radio and turns to face me. Because we were right. Margaret wasn't running this operation, she was just the face of it. Someone else has access to all her resources, all her actors, and now they're using them to discredit you before you can testify. My phone buzzes with a call from an unknown local number. Against my better judgment, I answer it. Sarah, sweetheart, this is Aunt Linda. The voice is warm, familiar, and completely terrifying because I don't have an Aunt Linda. I just saw your post online, and I'm very worried. I think you need to come stay with me for a while, just until you get back on your feet. Who is this really? I demand. Oh honey, you sound so confused. This is exactly what Dr. Reeves warned us about. The paranoia gets worse when you're under stress. I'm coming to pick you up, okay? David gave me your address. The line goes dead, and I stare at Agent Torres in horror. Someone claiming to be my aunt just said she's coming to get me. She knows where I live. Agent Torres starts the engine and pulls back into traffic, but instead of heading toward the federal building, she makes a sharp right turn toward the interstate. Change of plans, she says. We're getting you out of Portland entirely. Where are we going? Somewhere they can't buy fake family members or corrupt medical professionals. She checks her mirrors again. Sarah, I need you to turn off your phone completely. Don't just silence it, power it down. They're using it to track everything you do. I hold down the power button and watch my screen go black, cutting off the stream of fake posts and manufactured evidence of my mental breakdown. In the sudden silence, Agent Torres says the words that make my stomach drop. We think we know who's really running this operation. And if we're right, Margaret was just the beginning. 3 hours into our drive through the Oregon wilderness, Agent Torres finally tells me who we're running from, and I understand why Margaret seemed so confident even when the police were arresting her. Have you ever heard of Dr. Victoria Ashworth? Torres asks, checking her rearview mirror for the 15th time in the past hour. The name sends an ice-cold spike through my chest. She was my psychology professor sophomore year. Abnormal Psychology and Research Methods. Dr. Victoria Ashworth, former psychology professor at University of Oregon, current CEO of Behavioral Solutions International. Torres' knuckles are white on the steering wheel. Also known as the woman who's been pioneering therapeutic reality restructuring for high-net-worth families who want to modify their relatives' behavior. My mouth goes dry. Dr. Ashworth is behind this? We think she's been running inheritance manipulation schemes for over a decade. Margaret was one of at least 12 case managers working under her across the Pacific Northwest. The operation is worth an estimated $43 million in stolen assets. $43 million. I think back to Dr. Ashworth's classes, remembering how fascinated she seemed by case studies involving gaslighting and psychological manipulation. She used to say that reality was just consensus, and consensus could be engineered with the right techniques. Agent Torres, Dr. Ashworth knew me personally. She had access to my academic records, my psychological profile from student counseling services, everything about my family background. Which explains how Margaret's operation was so precisely targeted to your specific vulnerabilities. Torres takes an exit I don't recognize, heading toward a cluster of government buildings in what looks like the middle of nowhere. Ashworth didn't just hire your mother, she researched you for years and designed a custom psychological warfare campaign. My hands start shaking as I remember something from Dr. Ashworth's class that seemed insignificant at the time. She used to ask me to stay after lectures. Said I had fascinating insights into family dynamics and inheritance psychology. I thought she was being mentoring. She was gathering intelligence. Torres pulls into a parking lot surrounded by high fences and security cameras. Sarah, Dr. Ashworth has been studying you since you were 20 years old. This isn't just about your grandmother's money, you were her prototype. Prototype for what? For proving that anyone's reality can be completely rewritten with enough resources and planning. You weren't just a victim, Sarah. You were her proof of concept. The building we're approaching looks like a cross between a police station and a military facility. Agent Torres badges us through 3 separate security checkpoints before leading me into a windowless conference room where 2 other people are waiting. The first is a woman around my age with short brown hair and exhausted eyes. The second is a middle-aged man in an expensive suit who looks like he hasn't slept in weeks. Sarah Williams, Agent Torres says, meet Jessica Chen and Robert Hartley. Jessica is the college student from Seattle I mentioned, Marcus Chen's sister. Robert is the widower from Nevada. Jessica looks up at me with recognition that makes my skin crawl. You're the one from Portland. Victoria talked about you constantly during my brother's treatment. You met Dr. Ashworth? I ask, sitting down across from them. She supervised Marcus's case personally, Jessica says, her voice hollow. Came to every fake family therapy session, monitored his progress, adjusted the manipulation techniques based on how he responded. She called you her flagship success story even before your case was complete. Robert Hartley speaks for the first time, his voice rough with exhaustion. She visited me twice during my wife's sister's intervention. Said she was conducting research on grief-based reality modification and wanted to observe the techniques firsthand. Agent Torres sets a thick file on the table between us. What we're dealing with isn't just inheritance theft. Dr. Ashworth has been developing and refining psychological manipulation techniques using real people as test subjects. She's created a reproducible system for driving anyone insane on demand. I flip open the file and immediately wish I hadn't. The first page is a research proposal titled Systematic Reality Deconstruction, Applications in Legal and Financial Scenarios. Dr. Ashworth's name is listed as principal investigator. The second page is a detailed psychological profile with my photo attached. Every therapy session I had in college, every anxiety episode, every family conflict with Margaret, it's all documented and analyzed like data points in an experiment. She's been planning this since I was a student, I whisper. Longer than that, Agent Torres says grimly. We found records going back to when you were 18. Dr. Ashworth has been tracking inheritance patterns and identifying potential targets for over 15 years. Jessica leans forward, her eyes bright with desperate hope. But if we can prove she orchestrated everything, we can get our lives back, right? The courts will have to reverse the guardianship orders and psychiatric commitments. Agent Torres and Robert exchange a look that makes my stomach drop. That's what we're hoping, Torres says carefully. But there's something else you need to know. Dr. Ashworth disappeared 3 days ago, right after Margaret's arrest. And yesterday, someone transferred $11 million out of accounts linked to her operation. Where did the money go? I ask, though I'm not sure I want to know. That's what we're trying to figure out. But Sarah, we intercepted communications suggesting she's not done with you yet. In fact, we think Margaret's arrest was always part of her plan. The room goes completely silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Finally, Robert speaks up. What do you mean, part of her plan? Agent Torres opens another folder, this one marked with red classified stamps. We think Dr. Ashworth wanted Margaret to get caught. Because now you have a documented case of systematic gaslighting, a clear motive, and a perpetrator in custody. If something happens to you now, if you have a genuine breakdown, or if you disappear, or if you're found dead of apparent suicide, everyone will assume it's because you couldn't handle the revelation of what your mother did to you. The words hit me like physical blows. She's going to kill me and make it look like Margaret drove me to it. We think that was always the endgame, Torres confirms. The perfect crime, steal your inheritance, eliminate the witness, and let your already arrested mother take the blame for everything. I'm staring at Agent Torres across the conference table when my blood turns to ice. If Dr. Ashworth has been planning this for over a decade, she knows I'd never actually hurt myself. So how is she going to make my death look like suicide? Torres pulls out another file, this one thicker than the others. We think she's going to use the same technique she perfected on Marcus Chen, but in reverse. Jessica's face goes white. What do you mean, in reverse? Instead of making you think you're crazy, she's going to make everyone else think you become dangerous. Torres opens the file to reveal surveillance photos of me taken over the past 3 weeks, photos I never knew existed. Look at these timestamps. The first photo shows me at a gun store in Portland, apparently examining a handgun. The timestamp reads 2 days ago at 3:47 p.m. I've never been to a gun store in my life, I whisper. The second photo is you at a pharmacy, purchasing large quantities of sleeping pills, Torres continues. The third is you researching methods of, well, self-harm. At a public library computer. Every photo shows my face clearly, but I know with absolute certainty that I wasn't in any of these locations. These are fake. They have to be. The technology exists to create photorealistic images of anyone doing anything, Torres confirms. But here's the problem, these photos have already been anonymously sent to the Portland Police Department, along with a concerned citizen report about your increasingly erratic and dangerous behavior. Robert leans forward, his face grim. She did something similar to me. 3 weeks before my wife's sister convinced me to sign over power of attorney, neighbors started reporting that I was acting strangely. Talking to myself, making threats, stockpiling weapons. None of it was true, but by the time anyone asked me directly, I was already under psychiatric hold. My phone, still powered off in my pocket, suddenly feels like a bomb waiting to explode. Agent Torres, what happens when I turn my phone back on? We think you'll find evidence of searches you never made, purchases you never authorized, and communications with people you've never met. Dr. Ashworth is constructing a digital footprint that shows your mental state deteriorating rapidly after discovering your mother's deception. Jessica speaks up, her voice shaky. With Marcus, they planted evidence in his apartment. Disturbing drawings, journals filled with paranoid ravings, research materials about violence and revenge. When the police finally did a wellness check, they found exactly what they expected to find. So when my body turns up, everyone will say I snapped under the pressure of learning what Margaret did to me. I can barely get the words out. The fake social media posts, the manufactured evidence of dangerous behavior, it all builds the narrative that I became unstable and hurt myself. Or hurt someone else first, Torres adds grimly. We intercepted a communication suggesting they might stage an attack on Margaret in prison, make it look like you somehow arranged it as revenge. Then your apparent suicide would look like guilt over what you'd done. The room spins around me. Margaret might already be in danger? We've had her moved to federal protective custody as of this morning. But Sarah, the fact that we intercepted that communication means Dr. Ashworth knows we're onto her timeline. She's going to accelerate whatever she has planned. Agent Torres checks her watch, 4:23 p.m. We estimate you have maybe 48 hours before someone discovers your body and the case gets closed as a tragic aftermath of psychological abuse. What do we do? I ask. Torres closes the files and looks directly at me. We make Dr. Victoria Ashworth think her plan is working perfectly. And then we destroy her the same way she destroyed you. How? We're going to fake your death, Sarah. And then we're going to watch her try to collect your inheritance. The plan Agent Torres outlined sounds like something Dr. Ashworth herself would devise, and that terrifies me more than I want to admit. We'll stage a car accident on Highway 26, Torres explains, spreading out maps and photographs across the conference table. Remote location, steep ravine, vehicle fire that destroys most evidence. Your body will never be recovered, which is common in accidents like this. Jessica Chen looks skeptical. How does that help? If Sarah's legally dead, won't the inheritance automatically transfer according to her grandmother's will? That's exactly what we're counting on, Torres replies. Dr. Ashworth has spent over a decade positioning herself to benefit from Sarah's death. We think she's got legal documents ready, probably forged powers of attorney or fraudulent family connections that will let her claim the inheritance once Sarah is out of the picture. Robert Hartley nods grimly. With my case, they had my wife's fake sister ready to inherit everything within hours of my commitment. The paperwork was already filed before I even signed over power of attorney. Agent Torres pulls out a thick folder marked Ashworth, Victoria, Financial Analysis. We've been tracking money movements through shell companies connected to her operation. In the past month, she's made significant investments in legal services, document preparation, and identity verification systems. She's preparing for a major asset acquisition. The numbers she shows me make my head spin. Dr. Ashworth has spent $127,000 on legal fees in the past 3 weeks alone, all paid to firms specializing in inheritance disputes and estate claims. Another $89,000 went to a company called Heritage Documentation Services that apparently creates genealogical records and family trees. She's building a legal identity that gives her claim to my grandmother's money, I realize. Probably positioning herself as some long-lost relative or family friend with legitimate inheritance rights. Exactly. But here's what she doesn't know, we've been monitoring all her financial accounts since Margaret's arrest. The moment she tries to access your inheritance, we'll have her. Torres shows me satellite photos of a stretch of Highway 26, where the road curves sharply around Miller's Bend, a notorious accident site with a 200-foot drop into a rocky canyon. At 11:47 p.m. tonight, Sarah Williams will lose control of her vehicle during what appears to be a high-speed emotional breakdown. Her car will go through the guardrail and explode on impact. What about the body? Jessica asks. Won't they expect to find remains? Fires that intense leave very little recoverable evidence, Torres explains. Especially when the victim is driving alone late at night in a remote area. It'll take weeks to complete the investigation, and by then, Dr. Ashworth will have made her move. My phone buzzes, I powered it back on to check for more fake posts, and now I'm regretting it. The notification is from my bank, large purchase authorization required, $15,000 charge to Evergreen Memorial Services. I show the screen to Torres, my hands shaking. I didn't authorize any charges to a funeral home. She takes photos of the notification. They're already planning your memorial service. This confirms our timeline, Dr. Ashworth expects you to be dead within the next 24 hours. Another notification pops up, this time from my university email, Ms. Williams, we've received notification from next of kin regarding memorial arrangements for your academic records. Please contact the registrar's office to confirm transfer of materials to your designated family representative. Next of kin? I stare at the message. The only family I have is David, and he would never. Dr. Ashworth has created another fake relative, Torres concludes. Someone who's already positioning themselves as your heir and estate representative. Robert leans back in his chair, his face grim with recognition. The speed of this is exactly what happened to me. One day I was fine, the next day there were people claiming to be my late wife's family, making arrangements, taking control of everything. It's like they flip a switch and suddenly your entire life belongs to someone else. Torres checks her watch again, 5:15 p.m. Sarah, we need to move on this tonight. Dr. Ashworth is accelerating her timeline, which means she knows we're getting close. If we don't stage your death in the next 6 hours, she might try to make it happen for real. The weight of what she's asking hits me all at once. You want me to disappear completely? Give up my name, my life, everything I've worked for. Temporarily, Torres emphasizes. Once we arrest Dr. Ashworth and dismantle her network, you can reclaim your identity. But right now, Sarah Williams needs to die so the real Sarah can survive. I think about Dr. Ashworth sitting in some hidden office, watching news reports of my tragic accident, probably already drafting condolence letters to the university while her lawyers file inheritance claims. The thought fills me with something harder than fear, determination. What do you need me to do? At 11:47 p.m., Sarah Williams dies in a fiery car crash on Highway 26. By 11:52 p.m., I'm watching the staged explosion from a surveillance van half a mile away, officially beginning my new life as Rebecca Martinez, protected federal witness. The next 72 hours are the longest of my life, but they're worth every terrifying minute. Dr. Victoria Ashworth takes the bait exactly as Agent Torres predicted. 48 hours after my death, a woman claiming to be my grandmother Rose's niece, someone named Patricia Williams Ashworth, appears at the First National Bank of Oregon with a genealogical report, DNA evidence, and legal documentation proving her right to my inheritance. The bank manager, who's actually an undercover FBI agent, processes her claim with appropriate sympathy for her tragic loss of dear Sarah while recording every word. Poor Sarah was always so troubled, Patricia Williams Ashworth says, dabbing at fake tears with a tissue. Even as a child, there were signs of mental instability. Rose used to worry constantly about what would happen to that money if Sarah ever, well, if something like this happened. She produces medical records, forged, obviously, showing a family history of psychiatric illness. She has photos of herself with Rose at family gatherings that never occurred. She even has a handwritten letter, supposedly from my grandmother, expressing concerns about my mental health and stipulating that if anything happened to me, Patricia should inherit the trust to honor Rose's true wishes. The letter is a masterpiece of manipulation, written in Rose's shaky handwriting, which I now realize Dr. Ashworth had years to practice forging. Of course, I never wanted it to come to this, she continues, signing form after form. But Rose specifically asked me to watch over Sarah, and now, well, at least I can ensure the money is used responsibly. From the surveillance van, I watched Dr. Victoria Ashworth, 20 pounds thinner and with professionally dyed blonde hair, but definitely my former psychology professor, walk out of the bank with authorization to access $2.3 million that she spent a decade trying to steal. She makes it exactly 4 blocks before Agent Torres and 8 federal agents surround her vehicle. The arrest is beautiful in its simplicity. No dramatic chase, no violence, just Dr. Ashworth sitting in her Mercedes, staring at the handcuffs in complete disbelief that her perfect plan has failed. Victoria Ashworth, Agent Torres says, leaning down to the driver's side window, "You're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 15 other federal charges we're still tallying up. The murder charge is new, based on evidence we found in her office that she'd hired someone to tamper with my brakes if the psychological manipulation didn't work fast enough. My death was always the endgame." 3 months later, I'm sitting in federal court as myself again, legally resurrected and officially Sarah Elizabeth Williams, watching Dr. Ashworth's empire crumble under testimony from 37 victims, 62 hired actors, and a dozen corrupted medical professionals. The final tally is staggering: $127 million in stolen inheritances, 43 victims across 12 states, and a network of fraud that reached into universities, medical institutions, and legal systems across the Pacific Northwest. Margaret gets 15 years for her role, reduced to 8 with cooperation. Thomas Garrett, the fake Dr. Patterson, gets 3 years and has to testify against everyone above him in the hierarchy. Dr. Victoria Ashworth gets life without parole. But the most satisfying moment comes during sentencing, when she finally breaks character and screams at me across the courtroom, "You were supposed to be grateful. I was teaching you about psychological manipulation, you should have learned something." I did learn something, I tell her, speaking into the court microphone with my real voice, my real name, my real life finally my own again. I learned that reality isn't just consensus, and consensus can't be bought. "You destroyed everything," she shrieks as the bailiffs restrain her. "Years of research, decades of work." "No," I say, smiling at her for the first time in my life. "I destroyed you." 6 months later, I'm Dr. Sarah Williams, having successfully defended my thesis on systematic psychological manipulation in corporate and familial environments, a case study that writes itself. The inheritance money sits in a trust fund I've established for other victims of psychological fraud. My real life, it turns out, is worth more than anything my fake family ever tried to steal. And sometimes, when I'm feeling generous, I send Dr. Ashworth newspaper clippings about my work helping other survivors reclaim their sanity, their autonomy, and their futures. After all, she always said I had fascinating insights into family dynamics. She was right about that much.